Audio Jungle.
Ruling in case against Dalrymple Philibert postponed until December 13. The ruling on whether the Integrity Commission's IC case brought against Member of Parliament MP Marissa Dalrymple Philibert will proceed to trial has been postponed to December 13. Parish Court Judge Lacey Morris indicated in Kingston and St. Andrew Parish Court that he needed more time before announcing his decision. The decision is in relation to a preliminary point raised by Dalrymple Philibert's attorneys, Peter Champagny and Nico Pagan, that she was charged under the wrong section of the anti-corruption legislation. The attorneys contended too that the IC, which recommended the charges against the lawmakers, misinterpreted the legislation. In September last year, the IC ruled that Dalrymple Philibert, a practicing attorney, be slapped with 8 criminal charges for making a false statement in her statutory declaration filing between 2015 and 2021. The charges relate to the breaches of the Parliamentary Integrity of Members Act and the Integrity Commissions Act and are connected to the purchase of a 2015 Mercedes-Benz, which she omitted from her statutory declarations for 6 years, and the controversial use of a 20% duty concession to purchase it. Dalrymple Philibert resigned as Member of Parliament and House Speaker on September 21 last year over the matter. However, she was re-elected to represent Trelawney Southern in a by-election on November 22nd and resumed sitting in the House of Representatives on Tuesday. Man sentenced after assaulting ex on birthday date. A delivery driver on Friday ordered to pay $100,000 or spend 6 months in prison after pleading guilty to assaulting and threatening his ex-girlfriend. The incident reportedly occurred on Tyrone Williams' birthday, on a date the female complainant had treated him to. The accused allegedly hit the woman in the face several times and told her, "You can't leave me because me will kill you." When Williams was allowed to speak by the judge, he claimed the incident occurred because he had taken the woman's phone and she was struggling with him to get it back. The tussle occurred in public, and Williams was charged with assault occasioning actual bodily harm, resulting in him being sentenced on Friday. For the threats, he was admonished and discharged. Woman loses house fight after evicting sister-in-law. A woman who evicted her sick sister-in-law from a property a day after her husband died, claiming that she was the sole owner and later rejected a $30 million offer, was left disappointed after the court awarded full ownership to the widow. The Supreme Court found that although the sister, Margaret Francis, had a 50% stake in the property, she had been depositioned by her brother, Lancelot Clark, and his wife, Georgian Campbell Clark, who have been occupying the Moulins Road St. Andrew premises for more than 20 years. The property was originally owned by the siblings' mother, who transferred the title to Francis and her aunt. From 2003, the date of entry into possession of the first claimant, up to the date of the death of Mr. Clark in 2021, this court finds that the defendant failed to exercise any acts of ownership over the property, Justice Sonia Wint-Blair said in the judgment, which was handed down last month. This court finds that Mr. Clark had depositioned the defendant as the title holder, and her paper title to the property has been extinguished by operation of law. I find that Mr. Clark was entitled to the entire legal and equitable interest in the subject property by adverse position, she added. Francis, the defendant, in a claim brought by the widow in her capacity as administrator of her husband's estate, initially presented herself as the sole owner of the property and had kept her mother's will from her brother, in which is to be stated that he was a beneficiary of the property. Mr. Clark died not knowing that the contents of his mother's will. Mr. Clark and the first claimant first got a copy of the title to the property in and around 2004 to 2005 and saw that it was registered to the defendant and Miss Chevenix. Absolutely, the judge stated while disclosing that it was among the mother's wishes in the will for Clark to have a 50% interest in the land. However, in 2022, Frances found herself at the center of a legal battle after her attorney served Campbell Clark with 2 notices to quit. According to the widow, she did not think that the defendant would be so cruel and dishonest as to ask her to leave the property within 24 hours after her husband's death, knowing that she had lived there for the past 2 decades as well as she had agreed to help them get the property registered in their joint names. The widow was informed by her sister-in-law a day after her husband's death on October 8, 2021, that she was taking steps to sell the property. This came as a shock to Campbell Clark, who had just undergone major throat surgery and was in the midst of grieving, but who had always felt that the home was a shared asset of her and her brothers and had invested heavily financially. Besides the notices that were served in December 2021 and July 2022, police were also sent to the home, and realtors also showed up at the property, disturbing the widow's peace and privacy. The widow's son, who was overseas and could not return to care for his mother, had contacted Francis and offered to buy the house for $30 million, $1 million higher than the asking price, but was rejected even after he was obtaining approval for the loan from Victoria Mutual Building Society. However, Francis accepted an offer of $27 million from a couple and sent the notice for sale to Campbell Clark, who in return got an injunction to stop the sale before bringing the claim for 100% interest in the property. The widow, in her events, testified that she had lived at the 3-bedroom and 2-bathroom premises since 2003, when she moved there with her son and her belongings and took the role of the breadwinner and homemaker. She said she was told from the outset that the house belonged to her husband, and so over the years spent a lot of funds in renovating and fixing the premises, which she encouraged her husband to rent after adding 2 bathrooms and a bedroom. Campbell Clark, a hairdresser, said although her husband worked as an accountant, he did not have a steady job, so most of her money and funds for her son, who have eventually moved overseas, were used in the renovations. Based on the receipts that she had been able to find, she prepared a table of her capital expenditure on the property that showed a total of $1,435,000, which she testified represents less than half of her capital expenditure on the property over the years, including the contributions from her son, the judge stated. However, Francis, in her amended defense and counterclaim, contended that her brother had lived at the property since 2001 with the knowledge that they were in beneficial owners and occupied the premises with his wife, who was a licensee. She claimed that she was aware of and argued in the rental and visitation of subject property almost every Saturday. Francis also claimed that she had had an understanding with her brother that she would pay property taxes and that he would take care of the maintenance, repairs, and upkeep, and subsequently pay taxes, insurance, and mortgage. Accordingly, Francis said she never gave up her interest in the property, but the judge said the evidence pointed to Francis unsuccessfully attempting to assert several positions, the first categorizing her brother as a licensee in that it was she who permitted him to reside at the property. This could not be true, as her instructions to Darby and Associates stated that she was a purchaser of the property, which is inconsistent with her witness statement and amended defense, which stated that her brother occupied as a beneficial co-owner. The defendant did not permit her brother to occupy the property. He was not a licensee, and he had always occupied the property as an undisputed fact. She could have revoked a license she did not grant, nor could she have served him with a notice to quit nor recover possession from him as her tenant, the judge stated. The judge also indicated that the interference could make that if Francis had owned the property, then there would have been no need for her to serve a notice to quit Campbell Clark as a tenant. The notice to quit accords with the view held by the defendant that she permitted her brother to live on the land, and the first claimant was her licensee as well. The reason for the defendant's password becomes clear when viewed in the context. The conclusion is to be drawn from all the evidence of false statements and inconsistent position of the part of the defendant is that she had moved from wanting an equal entitlement to representing falsely that she was solely entitled to the property, and her actions are demonstrative of effort. However, she has been found to be dispositioned by Mr. Clark and Mrs. Clark, Wint-Blair stated. Attorneys Mark Paul Cowan and Natal Darkins and co-appeared for Campbell Clark, while attorneys Andrea Earl, KC, and Melissa Earl and Wilson's law firm appeared for Francis. Remember to subscribe, like, share, and click the notification bell for daily updates.